For Crema Media's Polity, I'm Sane Dhlamini, researcher and analyst. Professor Raymond Suttner joins me to discuss the representation and legitimacy. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
In your column, you probe the meaning of the word representation. Why did you find this necessary?
In the past, what I've tended to do is to say we've got representative democracy at the moment, but people don't like their political life to only be voting every 5 years. And I referred to the experience that we had in the 1980s of popular power, where people did things in their communities on a daily basis that were political as one of the ways of self-empowerment. And I wanted to find a way of having the coexistence of popular power and representative government. And I was strengthened in this view by a statement by Claude Ake, late Nigerian scholar, who said, representative democracy is a contradiction in terms. Now, what he meant is the original meaning of the word democracy was direct action of the people. So to have some people act on your behalf is a contradiction to that definition. Now, I want to question that notion of it being a contradiction in terms, and the way I was questioning it in my article is to ask what we understand by representation. If representation is merely to vote for someone who does something which may be quite different from that for which you voted, is that the end of the matter? Or, as I argued in the article, should we not be arguing that representation means that the person or people who go to represent you have a sense of connection with their constituency? They feel an empathy with them and compassion for their problems, and what they do in Parliament is, in a sense, to stand in for those who cannot be there. They represent what those people really believe in. Now, some people think that if you have a constituency system, that will solve everything. Now, Edmund Burke, already in 1774 in Britain, said, look, I don't have to listen to what you say. I owe you my judgment. I'm there just to act with my wisdom and so forth. But what I'm saying is we must have a Parliament that is accountable to those for whom they represent, those who elected them, but also merges their consciousness. When they go to Parliament, they merge their consciousness with that of those who are not physically present. They must be present in their minds. So I was suggesting that that was what people expected when they supported one person, one vote, and in the Freedom Charter, the people shall govern. They had in mind a Parliament of people they trusted and a people who would honor the trust placed in them.
And in your column, you also argued that elective representatives could not necessarily claim legitimacy on a permanent basis.
Yes, no, this is quite a radical argument in the sense that someone has been elected or people have been elected. Who are we to now say that they are illegitimate when the electorate has spoken? Now, my argument is that if you are elected on one basis and you do something fundamentally different, can you claim to have the support to be carrying out the mandate of the people who elected you? because people who vote are exercising the one political vehicle that they have for ensuring that what they want done is done. Now, the fact that you don't do it and they only have the vote to remove you doesn't mean that you retain legitimacy in their eyes, because these people don't have any other way of removing you, or any way. The only way that we have presented them with in order to realize their goals, their aspirations, their needs, to remedy their problems has been through voting. Now, the fact that they have no other means of realizing it, yet the MPs are not carrying out what people want from them, must, I think, mean that they may not retain legitimacy. Now, we see this in Greece at the moment. In Greece, a left-wing government was elected on the basis of an anti-austerity program. The EU, especially the big power like Germany, came down heavily on them, and they had to close the banks. There's a danger the country would go bankrupt. They held a referendum, and in the referendum, the people of Greece backed the government in wanting an anti-austerity program. But the danger with the referendum was that that wouldn't solve the problem of Greece going bankrupt. So the left-wing government had to decide, were they going to undermine their program of anti-austerity by settling for a deal which is exactly or very similar to that which they opposed when they got elected, or were they going to risk people's pensions, all these sorts of things, with the banks, the country going insolvent? And they now have settled for a package. And when they was voting for the package, some of the Syriza MPs didn't vote for it, and they got it through Parliament with the support of people who have been parties that have been opponents of them. Now, in other words, Syriza, the left-wing party, has actually taken a decision, I think in very difficult conditions, and we can't necessarily moralize about it, but they've taken a decision that runs contrary to the referendum. It also runs contrary to the basis on which they were elected. So it directly raises the question of whether, despite being an elected government, whether they still retain legitimacy. Now, unlike South Africa, it might be that they will be voted out in an election soon. Now, in South Africa, the DA won't be voted in. But that doesn't mean that we can't question legitimacy in a situation where people have no way of saying, people put their trust in the ANC because they don't see an alternative. And the ANC is not carrying out what serves their interests in many cases. And it seems to me that we can go back to what the Freedom Charter says, that no government can justly claim authority unless it is based on the will of the people. So when you divert the funds of Nkandla, the funds of the poor towards Nkandla, are you acting on the authority of the people? If not, I think we can reasonably question their legitimacy.
Thank you, Professor. That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about representation and legitimacy.